Thank you for joining us today in the program Look Before You Speak. The concept of the program is that opposite of commercial television where images are up on the screen for 1 to 2 seconds. 2 seconds is a long time. That I wanted to invite people on to really talk about imagery, raise the level of aesthetic literacy, and talk about and celebrate artists and cultural events and cultural icons of the community. So today we're really honored, and I'm really thrilled to have Josh Wagner, who's joining us via Skype, and this is the first time we've experimented with this on this program. And we're going to talk about the local Missoula artist and local treasure, Theo Ellsworth. And Theo's a young artist, but extremely disciplined and quite a visionary living here in Missoula. And wanted to thank Josh, and I'm going to turn over here and we get him right on the screen there, from Ireland. Hi, Josh.
How you doing?
Good. Thanks for coming on. And you have known Theo for a long time and actually collaborated with him, but your background is in writing. Is that correct?
That's correct. I couldn't draw to save my life.
But the creative, you guys share some vision and certainly attitudes and about the art that you're producing.
Yes, I believe that wholeheartedly. From the very day that I met him, actually, when he pulled out an old album full of drawings of a book he was working on, and every page he turned to, he would talk about something, and it would just resonate with the kind of themes and ideas that I really enjoyed playing with. So from that very moment, I always felt a kinship with him artistically.
It's really wonderful to have someone on who's willing to collaborate, as a writer with a visual artist. And boy, you sure picked out a giant to collaborate with.
Absolutely. I definitely feel blessed and lucky. And it did take a little bit of doing. Theo is a pretty solitary figure, and I can honestly say I started attempting to collaborate with him about 5 years before it actually worked out. So it took a little teeth pulling.
I'm really excited that you were willing to select some images that we can really look at and talk about, and I think that we can maybe just jump into this if you're up for it.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and flash up an image here. Oh, there's the first one there.
It just looks like a white piece of paper.
Oh, it does.
Let's see, which one? Can you describe that a little bit?
Sure. There's a figure with their arms up and out of the head. There's also, it looks like almost a touchdown symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And down below there's a figure with a trumpet. Kind of looks almost bat-like. And it's a black and white.
Right.
So I'm sorry you can't see it from, but on our screen here it will be on the screen. So.
Okay. Your description was perfect. I understand the drawing you're referring to now. So this was one of the original drawings that Theo did for the book Mystery Mark, which we created together. The process was quite a bit different from your standard writer-illustrator illustrated storybook that you might find, in that Theo was integral to the creation and development of the story itself. Even though he didn't do any of the writing, he and I worked together on developing the characters, the themes, and the plot. So, in fact, Theo did the first work on the project in, I believe it was this drawing itself that started everything. We had a little meeting together, and I sent him home and I said, what I really want to do is to key off of your work and create a story based on your intuitions. So he went home and he did a couple drawings, and I believe this was one of the first ones that he brought back to me. And we didn't even have any storyline in mind at all. He was just sort of going with his gut. And so we took these drawings story out of them. And these two characters here, the one with the trumpet and the one in the bed, ended up being the main characters in the book.
For the entire book. Yeah.
Yes.
When you look at this, I think one of the things that comes to mind, or an adjective that comes to mind for me, is obsessive. And, that, but his lines are accurate, and they're message driven. I think of this imagery as very much about messages.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, Theo has a way about not only his art, but even his storytelling, where you feel this urgency, like there's I love that you use the term message, because there's always a sense that there's some communication trying to get through, something that is struggling to manifest on the page and speak to the reader or the viewer.
Well, that's great. Now, let's jump into the next image here, if that's okay.
Okay.
I'll turn around and describe it to you. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we have it's a black and white, it's ink, and it looks like an older gentleman hugging a baby dinosaur. The baby dinosaur is probably on its lap, or a lizard. It looks like a baby dinosaur. And
it is.
Okay. Okay. Are any of these titled?
No, they're not, because all the black and whites here were all illustrations from the book. So they weren't necessarily intended to be standalone pieces, although we certainly have made some prints of a few of them.
Now, when you began and you looked at the imagery initially, and you began to write in response, did Theo then begin to illustrate, inspired by some of your writing?
Yeah, we went back and forth until we created a kind of a feedback loop, where it really became a conversation between us. And
that's wonderful.
Part of the conversation.
That's great.
Yeah.
So this was part of the... Go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, that's okay. We've got a little bit of a delay here, so it makes it a little tricky. So this is the main character. His name is Clay. And when I saw this image in particular, I think it was this image plus the last one we saw. And the first thing that struck me was that Clay's facial expression was the same in both images, even though he was in two different scenes. So that sort of gave us our very first plot point. And I thought, what if his face is always the same? What if his expression is frozen that way? Like when you're a kid and your mom says, don't make that face, it'll stick that way. So that sort of became the ground situation for the hero, that he's trapped with this look of terror on his face.
That's great. And so because these are black and white, and you probably later entered into adding some color to some of these illustrations, because I know Theo does work color into these, but the black and white kind of goes. Was that a choice, was a conscious choice with you guys?
Well, part of it was a practical issue, because Theo was working really hard on his understanding monster books at the time, so he sort of had to juggle his priorities and how much time he could give to each project. But this story does have a kind of noir element to it, in that there's these three skeletons, and they're sort of a surveillance crew, they're spies, and the story is called Mystery Mark, which in itself has kind of a noir detective flavor to it. So I think that the black and white was a really appropriate choice for the story.
That's great. That's great. Let's jump into another image if you're up for it.
Absolutely.
Okay, this is a black and white image of like a mouse-like figure with kind of crossed legs, and he's standing in front of a building. It might be a larger city building off the cornice of it.
Yeah, okay. This image became very emblematic for the book itself because it has most of the major elements are all sort of collected in one image. The figure on the left is Mystery Mark himself. He is stalking clay, and he has this sort of dragon puppet, which is acting as a kind of intermediary device to communicate a message to clay, which he doesn't want to just come out and say. At the same time, on the top of the roof, there are these skeleton crew that are surveying the situation. So you get a situation where the skeletons are spying on Mark, who's spying on Clay, and it really develops this theme of paranoia and surveillance culture that we live in today, which started as sort of instinctively what Theo wanted to draw about, and turned out to really resonate with what I wanted to write about. So that became the core idea behind the story.
Now, when you're talking about this, and I hear about this exchange between two really creative individuals, did you run into snags with that? Did you ever run into any maybe blocks or mental blocks or times in which you weren't able to get over the hurdle of sharing?
There were a couple moments compared to most of my experiences and most of artistic collaborations that you hear about, this was incredibly smooth. And I think it's because we do share a vision in how we enjoy narrating stories and the sort of things that we like to write and talk about and draw about. However, there were a couple moments where we butted heads. God, I wish I could remember what the main one was. I think it had something to do with the television show, and I wanted to reference the real world a little bit, and Theo wanted it to be entirely imaginative. So we had to kind of find a compromise, and we had a lot of emails that went back and forth, and he would explain his position and I would explain my position, and it was very amicable. There were never any heated tempers or anything like that. I think because we're both just very laid back people, but that, I believe, was personally and emotionally one of the most interesting moments in the collaboration, was when that tension arose and we had to sort of talk through it and find an avenue that worked for both of us. Which I think is really the point of collaboration.
That's fantastic, because I think also finding a way of to communicate between a visual artist and a writer. I always hear these writers about, I wish that the artists are always criticized for, developing text and their artist statements, and writers look at it and say, "What are you doing? What are you saying? You're not able to communicate." But visual artists should always be able to say, ask the writers to draw the foreword to their book. But anyway, I think finding a way between two different creative minds, one in the world of words and one in the world of imagery, is really critical, and I just want to compliment you guys. It's really wonderful to see the result of that.
Thank you. I think that's where the real power of collaboration comes from. is the unity of the two visions rather than one vision swallowing up the other one. Or even if the two visions are identical, then nothing new is really born.
Sure.
And that's really the joy of collaboration, is seeing something come out that either one individually never would have attained. It took the two minds coming together.
Exactly right. And I think that reference to maybe a more dominant spirit dominating collaboration, more often than not, when I witness collaborations, I see that, like one aspect. And it, it can be a musician and an artist, or a musician, a writer, whatever, a poet and a visual artist, or one aspect of it tends to dominate. And I think that can be a fault in collaborating. So let's jump into another image if you're okay with that.
Of course.
Okay, let me see here. This is a multicolored. It looks like yellow ghosts stretching through openings and trees and in and out of monsters' mouths and space things and eyeballs that are stretching. But there's incredible balance about this design too.
Yeah, this I selected this picture. This is not part of our book. This is from his Understanding Monster series, which is one of his solo projects. But I selected this one in particular because it really captures a lot of what I'm interested in Theo's work personally, and what has drawn me towards it and towards him as a creator and a collaborator. And that is that he has an impulse to capture the coming and development and this motive force within his work. As a visual artist who's not doing animation or film, you've got to work with still images and static images. And Theo doesn't like to be constrained by that fact, and he will put so much motion and growth and development and process into what is otherwise a static image. And I think that's really one of the most impressive things about him as an artist. You can just see such a story being told in one single piece of work.
And like you say, I really like that point you're making about it's a still image, but it's animated. It's an image about a story, but it encourages fantasy. So it's actually a work that's in motion itself.
Yeah, the motion of it is really where the power's at. It's phenomenal. The other thing that I really love about this piece is that it loops back upon itself, and that idea of recurrence, of reaching point Z and finding yourself back at point A, has always been a really strong theme in my work. And that was the first thing I recognized in Theo's work that made me think, there's something similar here. This notion of recurrence and return and circularity in life.
That's great. Okay, I think we might have two more images. Let's look at the next one here. Okay, this looks like the cover, Mystery Mark, and it has both your names. And are these available online?
Yeah, they're available at Theo's Etsy store.
Okay.
He's got a few boxes of them in his house,
okay.
And so if you buy one from his store, he will sign it and do a little drawing in the cover for you.
Okay, let's look at that real quick. It almost looks like a Thunderbird, maybe an upside down Thunderbird.
Mhm.
And is this referencing any of the characters? Or
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, if I were to explain this too much, it would give away the whole secret twist of the story.
Okay.
But suffice to say, it's one of the characters, and they're plunging through space. And I think that what you have here is flames coming off the character, which represents the speed and the transformation that the character is going through.
And again, this is a 3-color drawing. And I love the way that, Josh, or this does come off like a noir, like a dark film or a period piece. And like not maybe cartooning of our day, but maybe cartooning of the 30s and 40s almost. It's just,
Yeah,
just an
definitely.
observation. It's just an observation. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say that, I mean, you really hit the nail on the head there. When I first saw his drawing of Mystery Mark with, as you said, kind of the big Mickey Mouse ears, that was the original visual cue that made me think this could be a story about a guy's favorite TV show from when he was a kid, which is really what the story turns out to be. Mystery Mark is an old cartoon character from this from the time when Clay was young and I was a big fan of the show.
Okay. I think we have one more image, Josh.
Okay.
Oh, we have a couple more images here. We got, this looks like 2 figures with masks on. And is this something you collaborated with Theo on, a performance?
It is, and in fact, it's from Mystery Mark as well. Those characters are the characters that you see in the drawings that we've been showing.
So
in his chair, or I don't think he's in the chair, but that's Clay and Mark. And we did a collaboration with a theater company that I'm a part of called Viscosity Theater. And we took the story from the book and we distilled it into a performance piece. And we worked with Scott Morris, who's a local artist and designer. And he took the lead on building the set and those masks based off of Theo's artwork. And we built this sort of performative installation, which was keyed off of the story.
That's fantastic. That is just fantastic. Okay, and I think we have one more image.
Exciting part. Sorry?
I think we have one more image.
I think that might have been it.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think that's all I sent you guys.
Can you talk a little bit about any ideas for yourself in collaborating in the future with other artists or?
Well, I grew up wanting to be a novelist, so my core passion is writing novels, and in those circumstances, you're kind of on your own. And I believe that's kind of where my love for collaboration comes from, because it gets old after a while to just be by yourself, sitting in the basement, you and your brain trying to hash a story out, and you start to think you're going crazy a little bit. So collaboration is really a beautiful way to make art more social and less egotistical, less consuming, self-consuming. So I've always enjoyed working with artists and with theater people, with actors, directors, filmmakers. And I try to do it as much as I can. I've almost exclusively had positive experiences in collaboration. This particular collaboration was probably the most exciting in my life so far, not only because of the book with Theo, but because we were able to extend it into the 3D visual arts world and work with actors. And that set, after we were done, we even went and worked with a filmmaker and turned it into a short film. So the story ended up covering so many different mediums and involving so many different talented people around the community, from people who were really heavily invested like Scott, to volunteers who would come just to do paper mache and help get the masks put together. It became a real community project involving dozens of people. Exciting, and I hope that I'm able to be involved in something of that scope and magnitude again.
Well, it's really your efforts and Theo's efforts, and together you guys have produced so much. And I just want to thank you for being on today. And we miss you here in Missoula, and I wish you the best of luck where you are, and I hope that you come back and see us soon sometime. And thanks so much for being on today.